Okay, it looks like our attendees have all joined. Thank you for joining us this Monday morning. This is Noah. I'm the presenter here, one of the educators with Shortcuts. And this Monday morning session is going to be on working with the appointment book. So if you're new, welcome. And if you're repeating from the previous sessions, welcome back. So this session is really designed to get people up to speed, especially if you're new with shortcuts or if you haven't taken a good look at the appointment book in a while. So similar to other presentations, this webinar is about 30 to 40 minutes. My microphone is on and we are recording this session. So if you're late in joining, that's okay. We will be sending out a link for this recording a little bit later today. So your speakers, of course, have to be on. Hopefully you hear me while I'm saying this. We will take questions either during the presentation or right at the end. On the right side of your screen, you should have a little window that allows you to type in a question or type in a chat. So I will be checking those. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type it in and I will answer either during the presentation or we'll make some time at the very end. So what are we going to look at today? So the focus on today is knowing the basics of the appointment book. How do you navigate the screen? How do you work with tags and tasks? So how do you keep track of your customers? How do you keep track of your services? What are the extras in the appointment book? Perhaps some features that you're not aware of or that you haven't really been using. And a little bit on working with the cloud appointment book. So the traditional appointment book in the Shortcuts point of sale. So it's a way to organize, a way to see everything, and it's really a modern version of the classic appointment book, the old pen and paper appointment book. So we get to see the staff, we get to see and have the ability to jump forwards or backwards to look at today's date and in a day or a week at a time, to jump ahead using the calendar feature, how to get employee details, how to filter out certain staff or certain customers. What are the features in the appointment book menu? How to work with the appointment assistant, how to use the wait list. So let's actually jump into shortcuts and navigate the appointment book. So I'll get out of the presentation for just a moment and we'll go into the shortcuts environment. So again, this is an updated version of the classic appointment book. At the very top of the screen are the staff members. At the very bottom of the screen are how we turn the pages on our virtual appointment book. So we can go forwards or backwards, one day at a time, or even 1 week at a time. And let's say you have a customer that comes in regularly and they need to schedule their next appointment 2 weeks out or 4 weeks out. If you hold down the right click on the week button, you actually have the ability to jump ahead 2, 4, or 6 weeks at a time. And the same applies going backwards. Now, some of you may actually have touchscreen computers. And when I mention a right click, you can actually do that on a touchscreen. If you hold your finger down for just a second and then let it go, Shortcuts thinks you're asking for a right click command. So you don't necessarily have to use your mouse as we're talking about today's session or today's tools. So so this is how you turn the pages on your appointment book. And as you notice, on the left side of the screen are the hours of the day. Now, your appointment book might look a little bit different, and perhaps it's only showing the first few hours of your business day. So this is where the menu button starts to come in handy, and that's on the bottom right corner. If I go to menu, I currently have it set to all day, and it's not a 24-hour day. Instead, it's my business hours. So from 9 o'clock to 8 o'clock, which is when my virtual salon is open. So I could change it to a quarter day. And then I can focus specifically on just what's happening this morning. So now the details are a lot easier to read. And on the left side of the screen, I'm looking at from 9 o'clock till about 1:30 in the afternoon. On the far left side of the screen, if I use my mouse or if I click on the touch screen, I can actually click and drag and scroll down as the day progresses. Now, when you're in this view, whether you're in a quarter day or half day, shortcuts will automatically advance the screen, so you don't have to keep scrolling. Also, to tell where we're at, you'll notice that there is a gray line that starts to cover up your screen. So that gray line will automatically advance to just sort of highlight where we are in the day. So use the menu button to change how much of the day you're looking at. On the top left corner, let's say you have a customer that wants to schedule even further out than 2, 4, or 6 weeks at a time. Perhaps you have somebody that wants to make a wedding reservation, even for next year. So that is when you would press the calendar button on the top left corner. And when you do that, you can actually select any month or even any year on your calendar. So if somebody has a wedding planned for September and the very last Sunday in September, I can jump to that very specific day. You'll notice that when you're in the calendar view, the months are sideways on the side of the screen. And that's just a reminder that you can actually click and drag and just slide the calendar up or down and then choose a specific day. So this is sort of how to navigate this information. Now, on this window, 3 button presses control absolutely everything on the appointment book. You either do a single click, a double click, or a right click. So whenever you have an opening, and in this case, Andy has an opening for a 9:30 appointment. If somebody calls up and I want to assign the appointment to Andy, with my mouse or with the touchscreen, I would click that opening. Now, if you're not quite sure, am I clicking on 9:30 or 9:45 or 9:15? On the left side of the screen, shortcuts will actually highlight in yellow which time am I selecting. So I want exactly 9:30, so I'll select this tile. And as soon as I do that, shortcuts brings up the customer list. And I can search via first name or last name for a particular client, or I can just click their name on the left side of the screen. So once I choose my customer, I can press done. And after I select my customer, for most salons, you actually have tags enabled. And what tags are designed for is to tell shortcuts what type of customer is this? Is this a new customer? Is this a salon regular? Or is this somebody requesting a specific employee? So in this case, this is a salon regular. So I would choose that tag. Tags are very useful when you're doing your reports at the end of the week or at the end of the month, and you just want to get a head count on the types of customers you have. So whether you're doing this or the front desk or somebody else on staff is doing it, just remind them, always assign a tag. You do have the ability to change this later. So once I choose the tag, then I choose the service. So on the left side of the screen, I have my service categories. And in my case, they're mostly barber services. So I'll choose haircuts, and this customer is getting the executive cut. So Shortcuts is warning me, hey, I've booked this one recently. Am I sure I want to do it? Well, for the sake of testing purposes, yes, I do. So it shows Andy is doing an executive cut at 9:30 this morning. When I press done, the appointment appears right on the appointment book. So a single click does a lot of things. It lets us choose an opening, choose a customer, choose a tag, and choose a service. Now, once that service is on there, again, if I click one time on the service, at the bottom of the screen, you'll get something called the touch tip. And what the touch tip does is it shows us additional information about this appointment. So who's the customer? When are they coming in? What service are they receiving? So basic information will always appear there. So a single click lets you make an appointment and lets you get information about the appointment. Now, every appointment that's on the books, if you notice, they all have two shades. They're in a light shade and a dark shade. So these actually represent something in shortcuts. And this is something that if you're new to shortcuts or if you still haven't gotten the hang of it, when you're using a touchscreen, it does take a little bit of practice. So the light shaded area. On that appointment I just made with Andy, with our shortcuts test customer, if this customer said, instead of 9:30, can I come in at 10? Absolutely, as long as Andy has time for that. To move it, I click and drag the light shaded area and I just slide it down to 10 o'clock. So the light shaded area lets you move the appointment up, down, left, or right, anywhere on the appointment book. Now, the dark shaded area, what that allows me to do is change the length of the appointment. So if this customer came in and they had long hair and I knew there's no way I'm going to be able to have this done in 30 minutes, I needed an additional 15, I would click and drag the dark shaded area. And that lets me change the length of the appointment. And you notice the longer the appointment gets, the more information is potentially displayed there. Now, there are some security settings in shortcuts that will limit or will hide some information. So in your salon or in your barber shop or in your spa, if you drag the appointment and you make it very large and you notice the phone number is not there, there may be a security setting against that. So in this case, I'm giving the customer an extra 15 minutes. So the light shaded area lets me move it. The dark shaded area lets me change the length of time. And notice I say light shade versus dark shade instead of left and right, because if the appointment becomes very long, the position of the colors actually change. So now the light shade is on top and the dark shade is on the bottom. So always remember that. Don't think of it in left or right. Think of it in light shade or dark shade. Okay, so a single click lets us make appointments, move appointments, and even change the length of appointments. So we can actually do a lot with a single click. At the very top of the screen, where the staff names are, if I click one time, I get some additional information. So in this case, I know that Andy, I left him a message. When you go to daycare, don't forget to pick up some razors. And for Brad, there's a message here as well. It's his turn to take inventory. So a single click usually gives us information, whether it's for the staff or for the client. Now, in the case of Brad, we notice that Brad's appointments are discolored, and that's because Brad has the day off. So I need to move these appointments. So if I move the appointment to somebody else, like George, for example, then shortcuts will say, okay, there is no conflict with this appointment. They become from this beige color to a green color. So the colors can change on the appointment book depending on the status of the appointment. So to change the status, if a single click lets us move or make appointments, then a right click lets us change the status on the appointment. So I can mark somebody as arrived, for example, and shortcuts will change the color. If an appointment is made online, it usually shows up in yellow, and yellow means this appointment requires review. If a customer is a no-show and your receptionist just wants to let, in this case, Matt know that Danye was a no-show for his appointment. So each of these colors actually represents something. If you have text or email confirmations that go out and the customer confirms, it'll actually change it to a light green color. So every color represents something different on your appointment book. So sometimes you're very busy. Your staff is very busy. You don't get a chance to run to the computer all the time, but from across the room, you can just look at the colors on the screen, and Matt can tell he has a no-show. Andy can tell somebody made an online appointment. George can tell that his customer has arrived just by looking at the colors. They can't see their names, they can't see the details, but they can see the colors for certain. And you can always right-click and undo those changes. So when your staff asks, well, what do all of these colors represent? I keep seeing different colors on the screen. If we return to the menu button, there is a color legend here. And these are potentially all the colors that you will see on the appointment book. So a single click lets us make appointments, move appointments, resize appointments. A single click gives us information on the appointment or the employee. A right click lets us change the status on the appointment. A right click also lets us change the service that the customer came in for, change the tag for the client. CPC, I'll talk about CPC in just a second. That stands for Client Profile Card. A right click will let us put a note on the appointment. So when a customer, and I'll say I've reviewed this one. So let's say we had a client, Rob comes in, and he has a note for George, or he calls the receptionist and says, can you tell George when he does my cleanup, not to go too short? So I can right click and put a note on his visit and just tell George, not too short. So that's a message specifically for the stylist. And you'll notice it actually shows up as a little yellow post-it note. So again, this is an electronic version of the classic appointment book. In the old days, when you had paper appointment books, you would write a note on the post-it, slap it right on top of the appointment so that the stylist knew what was happening. And of course, that note will not be there the next time the customer makes an appointment. So it's just the electronic version of the same thing. So when George clicks one time on this appointment, at the bottom of the screen where the touch tip appears, that little pop-up window, it now shows the note not too short. So George knows exactly what Rob is talking about. So you can put a one-time use note against any customer. So of course you have customers that like to come in every few weeks for their appointment. So when you have clients like that, whether they're weekly, they come in for a weekly blowout, or they come in every 4 or 5 weeks to do their color, you can tell shortcuts this customer has a standing appointment, and it's very easy to do so. So let's say that's the case with Danye here. So Danye has some great Camo Express, so he wants to get his hair colored maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks to make sure that his hair color stays consistent. So to do that, you would right click on the appointment and you would set a recur. And Shortcuts only needs to know two things. When is his next visit and when is his last visit? So Danya comes in every 2 weeks. So his next visit is July 22nd. And then when is his last visit? He wants to hold on to that until the end of the year. So I'll choose the last Monday in December. And if there's any conflicts, if the employee already has a certain visit on that date, or if there is a day that the employee has requested off, then Shortcuts will give you a list of the ones that he cannot make. And then we'll still book all of the future appointments. So once it's done, Shortcuts will actually show us, okay, these are all the future appointments that this customer has made. So Danye is good from now until the end of the year. So it's very easy to make recurred appointments. You just right click and tell Shortcuts when is the next visit and when is the last visit. So a single click, a right click, those do a lot of things on the appointment book. A right click also does something with your staff. When you right click, you can leave a message with your employees. So this is how I was able to leave a message with Brad, his turn to take inventory, and Andy When he goes to daycare, don't forget to pick up some razors. So right-click, leave messages. More important than that, when a customer calls up and they need to know what are the availabilities for George over this week. So I can right-click and just isolate George this week, sort of like a filter for the staff. So I know, okay, George is available most days. If a customer says, okay, can I make an appointment for the middle or even the end of the month? You can absolutely do that. And you can scroll one day or 1 week at a time at the very bottom of the screen. And there's actually a week's pull down menu that allows you to see up to 3 weeks in advance for a staff member. So when your books start to fill up and you have very popular stylists and you need to isolate their schedule, just right click and view their week. And when you're in this view, if you have a customer that needed to reschedule, Rob, for example, he wanted to push his appointment to Thursday, I can just click and slide his appointment over to Thursday at any particular time that's open. And if you notice on the left side of the screen, shortcuts will highlight in yellow what time I'm selecting. So I can move Rob's appointment to this Thursday at 10 o'clock, just like that. So none of this deleting appointments and then choosing a new time. You just go to the week view and slide the appointment over. So that's how you mark out time for staff, how you move things around, and even how you isolate your employees. So that's a single click and a right click. This time, if I double click an appointment, again, shortcuts will show me their current and future visits for the client, but the two most important buttons are right at the bottom of the screen. You have customer history and the customer card. If I go to the customer history, then this will show every visit that the client has ever had, every service, every retail item he's ever purchased will be right here. At the bottom of the screen, this is a little bit more important. If your stylist have to record color formulas, or you're asking the receptionist to write down the formulas or preferred haircuts or styles, anything like that, this is where you would leave the note. So you would press new and then drop in a note. So let's say this client has a very particular haircut. So he gets a number 2 clipper cut on the sides, and then scissor cut on top, and that's his style. And that's what he always has. So the employee would put in a note, and that will always be available on his visit. So even if this shortcuts test customer went to see a different employee, if this customer said, can you give me the usual? Then all George has to do is double click and go to his history. And sure enough, oh, those are my notes. Okay, I know exactly what this customer needs. Now, if this was a color formula, on the right side, I can go to the print button, and shortcuts will print up that note so I can go to the color bar and mix up the color. So history is super important for your clients. So we always want to make sure that you're recording these details. So just remember, double click gets you to that history, but double click also gets you to the card. And the card allows you to update customer details. So contact number, emails, things like that. And on the right side, if you have a customer that wants to opt in or opt out of something, whether it's a confirmation, email marketing, or even getting a review, this is where you can opt them in or opt them out of that. On the bottom left side, message. So message is general information about the customer. This is only for you, only for your staff. This doesn't show up on any report. It does not show up on any other screen. This is only for the sake of your staff. So it allows you to record some general information about the customer. So for example, this customer is new in town, has 2 kids that get their haircut here. And that's Brandon and Jaden. So just general pieces of information can go in the message. So the next time a staff comes in, they can say, oh, how's Brandon doing? How's Jaden doing? And just get to know the client. But at the bottom, you still have the history, can still update and can still access that history. Now, if there was something important about this customer, something that we wanted everybody on staff to be aware of, not just his usual stylist or barber, that is when you would use the alert. So the alert is an important piece of information. Shortcuts usually puts a timestamp there. I'm going to delete the timestamp and I'm just going to put in the message. So this customer actually has allergies. He's allergic to tea tree oil, also allergic to latex. So of course, some of our stylists wear those gloves when they're cutting hair, so we just want to avoid anything he's allergic to. So when I save that information, you'll actually notice there's something a little bit different about this test customer's appointment. There is now a little exclamation mark next to the information button on the client card. So Shortcuts is warning us there is an alert here. Pay attention. So Andy will pay attention to this customer's visits, and it'll actually, when you click one time, at the bottom of the screen, it'll post the client message. This customer is allergic to tea tree oil, allergic to latex, so Andy knows to avoid these things. So this is a little bit different than the note. The one-time use note is literally one time. The next time my test customer Rob here makes an appointment, that note will disappear. However, the alert message, the client message, will always appear every time this customer makes an appointment because this is very important information. That's why we left an alert against it. So a double click allows us to get to that window and get to that card and update that alert. A double click will also allow you to add additional information for the client. So as customers return, you're going to pick up additional details for them. What's their occupation? When's their birthday? Things like that. So you're not necessarily going to get it on their first time, but on their third or fourth visit or even fifth visit, the customer mentions, hey, next week is my birthday. Oh, okay. And when the employee gets a chance, they'll actually put in that information in their client card. Or next month is my birthday. Or the customer mentions, oh, by the way, I work in a school, I'm a teacher. Okay, so I'm going to mark your occupation. And if the customer says, I actually heard about you thanks to Facebook, one of my friends saw you on Facebook, so I'll go to Facebook. Each of these pieces of information is a way to market to your customers. So you can actually tell Shortcuts when a customer's birthday rolls around, I want you to send them an email. If this is your 1-year anniversary on Facebook and you'd like to send a thank you email to everybody that met you thanks to Facebook, again, Shortcuts will find these clients and send them a message. Or let's say it's back to school season. And I know we're in the middle of summer, we don't even want to think about that, but when back to school season rolls around, I want to send an email to all of my people that are in school or are teachers and say, hey, we want to make sure you look great on your first day of school. Let's have you schedule an appointment. Again, Shortcuts will find just those clients and help you send them a message. So remember the info button, all of that extra information. So marketing relies on the information that your staff picks up. Don't forget to remind them that this information can always be updated. Now, at some point, we're going to have all of the potential information we need for a customer. So I don't need to keep asking them for an email or a phone number or their birthday. When I have all of the information I need, I can tell Shortcuts, this card is complete. And on the right side of their client card, there's a checkbox under extra details that says card is complete. So this will remind the staff, okay, you can focus on somebody else now. So when I mark it complete, you'll actually notice the little blue square on the top right corner with the letter I is now gone. So Shortcuts is saying, I don't need any more information for my Shortcuts test client. So now I can focus on Rob or I can focus on Cardi and try to get those additional details. So this is a way to remind your staff. So a single click, a double click, a right click, they control absolutely everything you see on your appointment book. Now, one last little piece. When you need to mark out somebody's time in the afternoon, not for a service, but for a task like taking a lunch, this is where you would click one time as if you're making an appointment for a staff member, George on the left side of the screen, for example. And instead of choosing a customer, at the very top of your customer list, there's an option that says schedule a task. So on the top left corner, I will press schedule a task and I will press done. And then Shortcuts will ask me, what is the particular task that this employee has to do? Now, I can create different times. I can edit the times for each of these tasks. So perhaps lunch is 60 minutes or 30 minutes. I can set that. I can add additional tasks. I can delete them. A meeting, for example, is maybe an hour. So George has to go to daycare to pick up his kid. So I will press done, and now Shortcuts will block that time. And you notice it still has the light and the dark shade. So I can move his task to 1 o'clock instead. And if George has to go to the beauty supply to pick up some products for me, I'm going to give him an extra 30 minutes. So I can click the dark shade and do that. So the nice thing about tasks is that they will synchronize online. So a customer cannot jump online and try to book George for an afternoon appointment because he has a task right there. So the customer will be asked to make his appointment at 1:15 or later. Plus, you can right-click on a task, put a note against it, or even recur it, just like appointments. So tasks are super popular with your staff. So I'm going to block out George for this afternoon. So now we're going to get to the big one. If you have customers and you need to put somebody on a wait list, and this is especially true around the holidays, you're just completely booked for weeks on end. So George will pretend is one of our most popular stylists, and somebody absolutely positively only wants to come in this afternoon. He doesn't want an evening appointment. He can only make it this afternoon. And we say, sorry, but George is unavailable. And the customer says, that's okay. If there's any chance that you can put me on a wait list, and if anything opens up for George between 1 and 2 o'clock, I'll take it. Okay, so we'll do that. So to put a customer on the wait list, on the bottom right corner, I'm going to press the plus button. Now, this is called the appointment assistant, and it looks complex. It's actually quite simple. It's just like a book. You start at the top and you work left to right, and you work your way down. So on the top left corner, the very first thing you do is you choose a customer. So I'll choose the Shortcuts test customer. And then from when am I searching? Am I searching from today for the next 3 months, which is the default? I'll say no. This customer is very adamant they can only come in today. So I'll choose from the 8th to the 8th. And then from what time does the customer want to come in? From the time the business opens until the evening? No. This customer says, I can only come in between 1 and 2 o'clock. Okay, so I chose the customer, I chose the day, and I chose the time. Now we need to tell Shortcuts what service is the customer coming in for. So I can choose services and say the customer needs an executive cut. With any employee between 1 and 2 o'clock, because I do have staff available then. And the customer says, no, I only want to see George. He's my favorite. So I chose the customer, the day, the time, the service, and the employee. Now, at the bottom of the screen, if I press the search button, Shortcuts will check my appointments and say, is there any openings for George? It's not going to find any. So Shortcuts will ask me, do I want to put him on the wait list? And I say yes. Shortcuts will then ask me, okay, do you want to check for any other times or any other employees? Yes or no? And I'll say no. This customer only wants to see George. So you can imagine around the holidays when you're booked Friday, Saturday, Sunday for weeks on end, you can actually tell the appointment assistant, try to find me an opening Friday, Saturday, or Sunday for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. And if Shortcuts does not find any openings for any staff members, then it will keep the customer on the wait list until something opens up. So where does the customer go? How do we know they're in the wait list? On the bottom left corner, there is a little hourglass icon. You've probably seen this. You've probably never even noticed it. So I can look at all of the requests for today. And there's only one person waiting, my Shortcuts test customer. He wants something between 1 and 2 o'clock. Unfortunately, nothing's available. So I'll go ahead and press done. But if something happens, let's say George doesn't have to go to daycare. He's going to send Brad to go to daycare to pick up the kid. So I'll move the task over, or the appointment, doesn't matter. Watch what happens to the hourglass on the bottom left corner. So now Shortcuts has found there is an opening, and it's going to alert you. It's going to alert the front desk, hey, something opened up. Go ahead and make an appointment. So now I'll click the hourglass and I'll look for today's request. And Shortcut says, this test customer can now be booked. Go ahead and give them a call. So I can press schedule. I can call the client and said, something just opened up. Would you like to come in at 1 o'clock or 1:15 or 1:30? And the customer says, 1 o'clock, please. So I'll choose that time and then I'll press book. And now Shortcuts will ask, okay, what type of customer was this? Well, it was definitely a regular client that requested my employee. And there it is. So now the request is there and the customer is off the wait list. So it's a super powerful tool. So don't forget, left to right, top to bottom. Choose the customer, choose the day or days that they're looking for an opening, choose the times that they want, choose the service, and any staff member or a specific staff member. So that's how you can always put people in the wait list and take them out of the wait list. So that was a marathon session of navigating around the appointment book. So now you should know all of the basics: booking an appointment, searching through your client list, or adding a new customer, making sure to apply a tag or to choose the service afterwards, how to move, how to resize the appointments. Remember the light shade versus the dark shade. How to delete appointments. You just right click and go to delete. How to change the status. You right click and choose arrive, checkout, or confirm. Working with touch tips. What information is on there? So when working with tags, working with tasks, remember, you can block out times for your team by using task. You can mark what types of customers you have by using tags. So make sure that you know the difference between tags and tasks. And of course, you can set different times for different tasks. So grouping customers into appointments. So these are some extras. You can right click and put multiple members in a group, whether it's a family or a wedding party, into a group, and Shortcuts will mark them accordingly by putting 2 dots in their appointment. You can right click and recur appointments. You can use the appointment assistant, put customers on the wait list, add notes to visits, add history notes to the client card. So all of this is accessible usually by using your right click command or using the appointment assistant button next to the menu. So the cloud appointment book. We're not going to launch one now because my test environment is currently down, so I can't show you, but the cloud is exactly like my Shortcuts point of sale, except the screen is white instead of black, but it allows you all of the same functionality. You see all of your staff member names. You have the ability to move anywhere forwards or backwards on the calendar, make appointments, search for customers, apply tags, even create tasks. See, even I get tongue twisted there. So the cloud appointment book allows you to access the point of sale screen, the appointment book screen, when you're working remotely. So in salons and barbershops, when you actually have a staff that's in the chair and they like to schedule their next appointment, if they have a tablet, for example, or even their phone, they can bring up the cloud appointment book and make that next appointment in the chair. So now the client doesn't have to go to the receptionist, they don't have to fill out an appointment card. It's all right there on the tablet. So of course, if you're not using the cloud appointment book, we can provide you with a link. So it's very flexible. Again, you can use it on a tablet or on a phone. You can check their history, the client history, update those notes. You don't have to rely on the receptionist to do that. So it helps you, it helps your staff focus more on the customer and less on the technology behind your business. Okay, now I know this has been a little bit longer than most Shortcuts webinars. So if you have any questions, now is your chance. And I noticed a couple of people already dropped out, so they probably got the answer to the question they were waiting for. So on the right side, I'm going to check the chat window, check the questions window. And if you have anything, go ahead and ask. Now is your chance. And if not, I'm going to call it a day. So checking the attendees. Looks like somebody has a question there. Okay. Well, if there are no questions, oh, now that was the last one. So the next Shortcuts webinar will be on the walk-in manager, not April. It'll be next Monday. So that would be July 15th. I really should update my slide. So if you have any questions, if you think of anything later today, you can always email us. We're at customercare@shortcuts.net, or you can ask us questions on Facebook. We do pay attention to that as well. Or you can give us a call. So if you think of anything after today's presentation or something comes up regarding the appointment book, a quick refresh, we will send you a copy of this video, but you're also welcome to email us any questions and we will get back to you. Oh, sorry, before I wrap this up, somebody did have a question. Let me scroll up. How do you add or recur a lunch break? So that's an excellent question. So let's jump back to the Shortcuts point of sale. So recurring a lunch break, it's very similar to recurring an appointment. So Andy here already has his lunch, but let's find somebody that doesn't. So I'll pretend that Brad, we're going to get rid of this task. I'm going to right click and delete. So normally Brad has his lunch at 12 o'clock. So I'll schedule a task, even though Brad's not here today. I'll give him a lunch at 12 o'clock. So if I right click, I'm going to select Recur. So Brad, maybe he's with me 6 days out of the week or 5 days out of the week. So I'm going to set a Recur schedule for him. And I'll tell Shortcuts the next time he takes lunch would be tomorrow. So now Shortcuts recognizes, okay, he takes a daily task at the same time. So when is this task going to end? So let's say I only book him out for the next 2 months. So I'll choose the last day in August, the 31st. And Shortcuts will now schedule him every day of the week at 12 o'clock. Now Shortcuts is warning me. He can't really have the task on Mondays because he's not available. That's his day off. Well, that's okay. When I press done, Shortcuts will still book his task every day of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, for the next 2 months. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. So that's how you recur a lunch break. You really just right click and tell Shortcuts The next day is the day that the customer or the employee takes the lunch, and then whether it's for the next month or even until the end of the year, when does this task end? Okay. Are there any other questions? I think that's it. Okay. But again, if you think of anything, absolutely let us know. Give us a call, send us an email, or post a question on Facebook. We will answer it. So thank you for attending this Monday classroom session. My name is Noah, and I hope to see you next Monday or one of our future Monday sessions. Have a great week, and I hope to see everybody again soon.